Check, check, check. Checking the sound. Hey, I'm Wes Barker, professional magician, and today I'm going to talk to you about the most famous magic trick of all time, the bullet catch. The reason it's so famous is, well, a lot of magicians have died performing it. I mean, it's a bullet catch. Today, I'm going to tell you about the 5 craziest stories. Now, the bullet catch magic trick is basically what it sounds like. The magician catches a bullet, sometimes in their hand, sometimes in their mouth, sometimes on a plate. What the audience sees is a gun loaded with a bullet, aimed at the magician, and fired. And the next, well, is normally magic. But as you can imagine, to make this trick really convincing, you're going to be using a real gun, or at least real gunpowder. And that means so many things can go wrong. So let's start in 1840 with Arnold Buck. Arnold Buck had a spectator come on stage to fire the gun at him. Now sometimes as a magician you get a spectator that just wants to screw up your trick. And normally that just involves them shuffling the cards when you don't want them to, or dropping your prop on the ground. But with a bullet catch, it can get very serious. Unfortunately, Arnold Buck had a spectator just like that. So when the spectator went on stage, he was handed a bullet, which he loaded into the gun. Now, between you and me, the bullet's a blank. That's how this trick's gonna work. But this spectator wanted to test the magician and maybe screw up the trick, and he loaded a nail in on top of the bullet. When the spectator fired the gun, well, there's no magic trick here, just physics. So instead of firing off a blank, that gunpowder sent a nail, fatally, into our poor magician. Number 2, Professor Adam Epstein in 1869. Now this magician was a bit more cautious when it came to the bullet catch, but it still has a very similar ending. He wouldn't let the spectator load the gun because he didn't want to go the way of Arnold Buck. He would load it himself, but as his ramrod for ramming down the ammunition, he used his wand. Now ramrods are designed for a reason, and well, magic wands for a whole different reason. So when he jammed his magic wand down there, which I'm sure he'd done hundreds of times before, this time a little piece of his magic wand broke off inside the barrel. He probably didn't even notice. But then he hands the gun off to a spectator who takes aim, and those little bits of wand turned into sharp, fatal, flying foreign objects. That's a lot of F's. Even a broken piece of wand when being blasted out of a gun barrel, well, apparently that was more than enough to be the end of Professor Adam Epstein. So far, we have 2 different magicians using 2 different methods, but both suffering the same horrible fate. So that brings me to the Black Wizard of the West in 1922. This guy had it all figured out. He wasn't going to let an audience member near his guns. He wasn't going to let a random spectator shoot any kind of gun with him. He wasn't going to let anyone touch this gun that he didn't absolutely trust unequivocally with, well, his life. So his gun-firing assistant was his wife. What he didn't anticipate was, well, his wife apparently hated him. Her job as the assistant in this trick was to load the gun with wax bullets and fire it at her husband. She obviously resented him. She harbored some ill will towards the man. And instead of loading wax bullets, she switched them out for real ones. And she gunned down her husband in front of a obviously horrified audience. That is crazy. That is not something you'd expect. That is probably why you need to be a better husband. Now this one slides oh so nicely into number 4 with Madame Balinsky in 1820. Her bullet catch trick was quite unique. She would have a firing squad of 6 soldiers line up and all shoot at her, which is a pretty incredible thing to see. Now all these soldiers, well, they're in on it. They're shills, they're stooges, they're plants. They're all paid beforehand to load their guns with blanks. Unfortunately for Madame Balinsky, not everyone's meant to be on stage. So one of these 6 soldiers, he screwed up. He got nervous. I mean, he just reverted to his muscle memory of loading his gun, which he's done thousands of times before. And he accidentally loaded a real bullet instead of the blank. And then he took aim and shot Madame Balinsky. She got shot for real, right in the abdomen. I mean, they rushed her to hospital, they tried their best, but 2 days later, that was the shot that killed her. Now, isn't it amazing how many different ways this trick can go wrong? It's amazing anyone would ever attempt it, but fortune favors the bold? I don't know. But as per usual, I've saved the craziest for last, and you may have guessed it because I'm standing right in front of the poster. It's Chung Ling Soo. Chung Ling Soo is one of the most famous magicians to ever exist. He died in 1918, but there is so much to understand about Chung Ling Soo. Chung Ling Soo was a fraud. He was actually an American, but he pretended to be Chinese on stage. He pretended not to speak any English. His real name was Williams Ellsworth Campbell Robinson. Yeah, pretty far from a Chinese guy. In fact, he'd ripped off his whole act from the Chinese magician Chung Ling Soo. He basically stole it beat for beat and created Chung Ling Soo. Now, as you can imagine, that created a huge rivalry between these two magicians. Chung Ling Soo must have been so mad, being like, hey man, you're not even Chinese. You know, I mean, this was 100 years ago, but still, that's crazy to me. But Chung Ling Soo must have been very convincing because either no one cared or no one knew. He never spoke any English on stage. He was always in character, dressed the part. He had everybody fooled. And he was performing the bullet catch. That brings us to what went wrong. March 23rd, 1918 at 10:45 p.m. It's time for the great trick, the bullet catch. Now, the way his guns worked were kind of cool. He had double barrel guns. So they could load a real bullet into one of the barrels. And it would look good to all the audience. They could inspect the bullet, they could see it clearly being loaded into the barrel, and then what would happen is when they fired the gun, they would fire the other barrel instead, which would shoot a blank out. Pretty genius. Over the thousands of performances of this, I guess the guns were being cleaned properly enough or regularly enough, and some gunpowder residue had built up on the side with the real bullet as well as the blank. So when they fired the blank, it actually ignited both barrels, sending the real bullet right into Chung Ling Soo. And he gets hit with the bullet. Chung Ling Soo hits the ground and he screams, "Oh my God, something's happened. Lower the curtain." In perfect English. That was the first time he'd ever spoken on stage, and it was in perfect English, no hint of a Chinese accent. It wasn't until then, until after his death, that his true identity was actually revealed. Isn't that crazy? That blows my mind. I have this in my office because it is one of the coolest magic stories in history. Just the whole commitment to it, the whole fraud. It's just an amazing, amazing story, an amazing career with a wild, wild ending. It's just absolutely fascinating to me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. In fact, I hope you liked all these stories. If you like it, like it. Why not subscribe while you're here if you haven't done that already? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. A lot of times you guys will have great extra details on some of these stories, and I love to read those. Or you can point me at a whole new story I've never heard of, and I can go research that because I love learning about this stuff. Hope you guys enjoying it. If you're a magician, stay safe. If you're not a magician, stay safe. Take care, guys. See you in the next one. Bye. I want to exit again. I want to say bye a bit better. I want to go. All right. See you later. No, that was too formal. I'll do one more like this. I'll go. Take it easy. Hey. Nope. Much there. That's it.